From now on, you'll send your entire paycheck to Mom's account. You don't get to keep a single cent. And if you ever want money again, you'll have to kneel and beg us." Those words slammed into me like a brick wall. My brother Travis stood in the middle of my living room, his face red with anger, clutching a stack of papers that said Family Contribution Plan in bold print. Behind him, my mother Carol leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, that familiar smirk tugging at her lips. The one she always wore when she thought she was teaching me a lesson. For a second, I just stared at them. I'd had a long week at work, system audits, late meetings, coffee for dinner. And now this circus had shown up on my doorstep uninvited, demanding my salary. I'm Lena Marlowe, 31, a systems analyst from Denver. I've worked my way up from temp jobs and cheap apartments to a solid career and a quiet place of my own. I thought my family would be proud. I was wrong. Travis slammed the papers on my coffee table. "Sign it," he ordered. "It's only fair. You make the most. Mom's struggling, and I'm between jobs again." Carol chimed in smoothly. "Lena, honey, we're a family. Families share. You wouldn't even have that job without all I sacrificed for you." Sacrificed. That word again. I could still hear her saying it when I paid off her medical bills, when I covered Travis's rent after he lost another job, when I sent money every time she called crying about emergencies. I looked down at those papers and realized they didn't want help. They wanted control. "Mom," I said quietly, "you've gotten more of my paychecks than I have." Her expression hardened. "Watch your tone. You wouldn't talk like that if you remembered who raised you." I met her eyes, calm but steady. "You're right. You raised me to fix everyone else's mess. That ends today." Travis barked out a laugh. "You think you can just say no? You'll come crawling back. You always do." I stood up, my voice even. "Not this time." For a long moment, the room was silent except for the ticking clock. Carol's smirk faltered, just a flicker, before she turned toward the door. "You'll regret this, Lena." Maybe. But as the door slammed behind them, I felt something shift inside me, a quiet, fierce calm. They thought I'd give in. They didn't know who they were dealing with. The apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of my laptop. Midnight light from the screen flickered across a pile of receipts and bank statements scattered across the table. Every transaction felt like a slap I hadn't seen coming. Rent transfers to Travis. Utility bills that weren't in my name. Medical payments for Mom. And credit card charges from a store I'd never even set foot in. When I added it all up, the total stopped me cold, $52,000. 2 years of helping out. 2 years of being drained. I scrolled through old messages, each one a breadcrumb of guilt. "Just this once, sweetheart. I'll pay you back next month. You know your brother's having a hard time. Don't be selfish. You wouldn't have anything without me, remember that." Carol's words were always wrapped in care, but they cut deep once you looked closer. I could almost hear her voice now, warm and commanding. "We're your family, you don't get to say no." My fingers trembled as I clicked through each account. Every memory came with a number attached. The month Travis got evicted and begged for just a loan. The time Mom cried about an overdue hospital bill only to post pictures from a spa weekend days later. I'd called it generosity back then. Tonight, it looked a lot like control. I leaned back, letting the realization sink in. It wasn't about the money. It was the pattern, the expectation that I would always clean up their chaos. That I existed to fix, to fund, to forgive. I stared at the screen until my reflection stared back, tired, but finally seeing the truth. That's when the whisper escaped me, quiet but certain. "That's where you're wrong." Something shifted inside, a cold resolve sliding into place. I opened a new tab and began searching for secure trust accounts. Not shared, not joint, not for emergencies. Mine. Every form I filled out felt like reclaiming a piece of myself they'd taken. I rerouted my paycheck to a new account, set new passwords, and added two-step verification that only I controlled. No more open doors. No more access. When it was done, I sat back, heart steady. The apartment was still silent, but it felt different now, like the air was clearing after a storm. I picked up my phone, locked the screen, and murmured to the empty room, "Let's balance the books." The next morning, I walked into the office earlier than usual. The air was still, the hum of servers echoing faintly in the background. My badge beeped against the glass door, and I slipped inside, coffee in hand, face calm but mind razor-sharp. No one needed to know what I was doing. This wasn't about work. This was about reclaiming control. I logged into my workstation, the soft blue glow of the screen illuminating the quiet room. Years of cybersecurity training had taught me one thing. Power doesn't always come from confrontation. Sometimes it comes from precision, quiet, deliberate, invisible precision. I opened my payroll portal and rewrote the destination for my salary, rerouting every cent directly into the new trust I'd set up the night before. No one else had the credentials. No shared access, no permissions granted, no loose ends. It was airtight. Next, I moved on to the joint accounts, the ones Mom and Travis still thought they had their hooks in. I reviewed every linked card, every recurring transfer, every automatic payment they could exploit. Then, with a few swift keystrokes, I froze them all. The system confirmed, access restricted. I wasn't breaking any laws. Everything I did was documented, clean, traceable. The kind of transparency that left no room for manipulation. It was the kind of safety net they'd never imagine I could build. After that, I opened a new program, one of the company's internal tools I helped design, a fraud detection system. Using what I knew, I set up real-time alerts on my personal accounts, notifications that would flag any suspicious attempt to log in or transfer funds. It wasn't paranoia. It was prevention. Hours passed unnoticed. The office gradually filled with chatter and footsteps, but I stayed in my zone, double-checking each safeguard, re-verifying encryption, changing passcodes until even I had to pause to remember them. My pulse stayed steady. No anxiety. Just clarity. By noon, I had completed everything. Salary protected, accounts isolated, identity locked tighter than a vault. My finances were finally mine again. I shut down my terminal, unplugged my flash drive, and took a deep breath. The glow of the monitor faded, but a quiet satisfaction lingered. It wasn't dramatic or loud, but it was victory, the kind that doesn't need witnesses. As I gathered my things and looked out the office window at the city below, one thought settled in, sharp and certain. Tomorrow, they'll find out who's really irresponsible. The phone started buzzing before sunrise. At first, I thought it was my alarm, but when I blinked at the screen, there were 23 missed calls, 15 from Mom, 8 from Travis. Then the messages started rolling in, one after another. Call me now. What did you do? My card isn't working. The bank says the account's frozen. The words blurred together in a frantic rhythm of panic. By 6:30 a.m., I knew they'd be at my door. I didn't rush. Instead, I padded into the kitchen, poured myself a cup of coffee, and opened the blinds. Morning light spilled across the counter, calm and golden, the exact opposite of what was about to come crashing through my door. Right on cue, a car screeched to a stop outside. Seconds later, fists pounded against the door. Open up. Travis's voice was raw and angry. I didn't flinch. I took a slow sip and let them keep knocking. When I finally opened the door, Travis barreled past me, waving his phone in my face. You think this is funny? None of the cards work. The account's frozen. Fix this right now. His voice cracked, somewhere between rage and fear. Behind him, Mom stepped in, her expression tight but trembling. Lena, sweetheart, please, she said, her tone dripping with forced calm. The bank must have made a mistake. You need to call them and sort this out before it ruins your credit too. I leaned against the counter, coffee in hand. There's no mistake, I said evenly. I fixed everything. Travis blinked, not understanding. What the hell does that mean? It means, I said, meeting his stare, you don't have access to my money anymore. Mom's composure cracked. Her voice rose, brittle and sharp. You're punishing us after everything we've done for you? Exactly, I said simply. The silence that followed was heavier than shouting. Travis paced, muttering curses under his breath, while Mom's hands shook as she clutched her purse. You can't just shut out your own family, she hissed. You'll regret this when you need us. I set my cup down gently, the sound small but final. Need you? I stopped needing you the moment you turned family into leverage. Her face twisted, part fury, part disbelief. She took a step toward me, pointing a trembling finger. You can't do this to family. I held her gaze, voice calm and low. You did it first. The words hung there, quiet and sharp, as the morning light caught the edge of my coffee cup, steady, unshaken. The next few days unfolded like a quiet storm. Not loud, not visible, but persistent. My phone became a battlefield of guilt. Every few hours, another text from Mom appeared, each one soaked in self-pity. We were only trying to help you. You've completely misunderstood our intentions. I just want my daughter back. Each message tried to twist the knife without leaving fingerprints. I didn't reply. I read them once, then deleted them before they could fester. Travis's approach was different. His guilt came wrapped in fake concern. Voicemails pinged one after another. "Hey sis, just checking in. You okay? I know you're under stress. Look, maybe we all said things we didn't mean." His tone softened just enough to sound sincere, but every pause carried calculation. The same pattern, the same script. They weren't reaching out because they cared. They were reaching out because control had slipped through their fingers. By midweek, a new voice joined the chorus. My aunt, the unofficial family messenger. She called from a number I didn't recognize, her voice syrupy sweet. "Lena, honey, your mom's been so worried. She just wants to make peace. Maybe if you come over for dinner, we can talk it out." Every word felt rehearsed, like she was reading from a cue card written by Carol herself. I thanked her, then ended the call before she could say more. Silence was my new boundary. At work, things felt different. For once, my focus wasn't clouded by their chaos. I poured my energy into my job, diving into code, data models, and late-night planning sessions. My coworker Renee noticed before I did. One morning, she stopped by my desk, coffee in hand, eyes curious. "You look lighter," she said. I smiled without answering, because she was right. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying anyone else's weight. Later that afternoon, an email notification popped up on my screen. My proposal for a new company initiative, Financial Defense for Women, had been approved. A program built to help women protect their finances from manipulation and control. It felt poetic, almost personal, like the universe had handed me a clean slate disguised as a project. When the office emptied out and the lights dimmed, I sat at my desk a little longer, letting the quiet settle in. The chaos had finally stopped reaching me. My family had taken my money, my time, my peace, but as I packed up for the night, one thought echoed clear and calm. They took my money, but I took my life back. The envelope showed up on a Thursday morning, plain and official looking. For a moment, I thought it was another bank notice or work document, until I saw the letterhead. County Family Services Department. My stomach went still. I tore it open carefully, eyes scanning the words that shouldn't have existed. A complaint had been filed. Someone had accused me of neglecting and abandoning my elderly, dependent mother. I didn't need to guess who. Carol had gone for her final card, the one meant to destroy my reputation. The language was sharp and clinical, describing how I cut off financial and emotional support, how I'd refused basic care for her well-being. A list of lies printed neatly on government paper. For a few seconds, I just sat there, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. Then something in me steadied. I opened my laptop, logged into my financial archive, and began pulling records. Years of receipts, transactions, medical payments, rent transfers, grocery orders, all in my name, all documented. The evidence of every sacrifice she'd ever denied. I scanned everything into a single file and forwarded it directly to the case officer listed on the letter. Along with it, I attached a brief note. Please review the transaction history. It will clarify everything. By evening, the response arrived. The investigation had been dismissed. Lack of evidence, case closed. The official tone didn't mention truth or justice, but I didn't need it to. The data spoke louder than any defense I could have given. Minutes later, my phone buzzed. A message from Travis. "We lost everything because of you." No greeting, no punctuation, just rage packed into 6 words. I stared at it for a moment, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then I typed back, "No. You lost access." No reply came. Just the blinking delivered mark that sat there, waiting for a reaction I didn't give. That night, I opened my contacts list. Name after name appeared. Mom, Travis, Aunt Lisa, cousins who'd stayed silent through it all. I scrolled through them slowly, not angry, not sad. Just done. One by one, I hit delete. The list grew shorter, lighter, cleaner. When the final name disappeared, I set the phone face down on the nightstand. The room felt still, untouched by anyone's noise. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for a call, an apology, or another demand. I lay back against the pillow, eyes open to the quiet. Silence can be the sweetest revenge. The idea had been forming quietly for months, seeded the moment I took back my accounts and my peace. But now it had shape, a name, and a purpose. I called it the Clearline Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to helping women secure financial independence from controlling families. The name came from what I'd craved most. A clear line between obligation and ownership, between guilt and freedom. I spent nights drafting the charter, days meeting with advisors, accountants, and legal consultants. Every form I signed felt like a reversal of the damage that had been done to me. I wasn't just reclaiming control. I was building a system so others wouldn't have to fight the same invisible war alone. When the website went live, a soft blue logo and a mission statement stared back at me. Protect. Rebuild. Begin again. Within weeks, donations started to trickle in, small amounts at first, messages attached from women who understood too well. Then came the first major contribution, $10,000 from an anonymous donor. That money went directly to a housing program for women trying to rebuild their lives after years of financial control. The moment the transfer cleared, I sat still, staring at the confirmation screen. It wasn't about numbers anymore. It was about proof that pain could evolve into purpose. My company caught wind of the project when a colleague mentioned it during a meeting. A week later, it appeared in our internal newsletter under the headline Employee Initiative Empowers Women to Take Financial Control. They called it innovative, inspiring, needed. But what struck me most was the quiet nod from my manager as she passed my desk that afternoon. No words, just acknowledgement. Around the office, whispers started spreading. Coworkers began referring to me as a quiet storm. It wasn't meant to be dramatic, just accurate. I had learned to move softly, precisely, leaving impact where it mattered most. One evening, I reviewed the foundation's first case file. A nurse named Dana had reached out after years of her father controlling her paycheck and debts. With our guidance, she separated her accounts, secured new housing, and started fresh. When she sent her final update, her words were simple. I finally feel like myself again. I leaned back in my chair, the glow from the screen reflecting off my hands. A slow, certain smile formed as I whispered to no one in particular. They wanted control. I built freedom. And for the first time, the weight of what happened didn't feel like a scar. It felt like a foundation. The envelope was thin, cream-colored, and slid halfway under my apartment door like it had lost its way. No name. No return address. Just silence pressed between paper and time. I stood there for a while, unsure if I even wanted to touch it. Still, curiosity won. Inside, a single photograph waited, old, faded, edges curling from age. It was me, Carol, and Travis at a park. I couldn't have been more than 12. Carol had her arm around me, Travis holding an ice cream cone. All of us caught mid-laughter in a moment that didn't feel real anymore. I turned it over. On the back, in familiar handwriting, were 10 words. We just wanted to feel safe. Maybe we went too far. The sentence was short, but it landed like a weight I wasn't ready for. I sat at my table, the photo between my fingers, and let the silence stretch. The air in my apartment was still, the kind that carries both peace and ache. There were 100 things I could have done, called cried, written back. But the truth was, there wasn't anything left to say. Some wounds didn't need revisiting. Some apologies arrived too late to be answered. That night, I carried the picture to my balcony. The city hummed quietly below, lights flickering against the dark. I set the photo in a small dish, struck a match, and watched the flame catch. It curled the paper slowly, the laughter in the image dissolving into smoke. When it was gone, the ashes drifted upward, fragile and free. The next morning, I made a quiet decision. I transferred $5,000 to the Clearline Foundation under Carol's name. It wasn't forgiveness, it was peace. A way to close a door without slamming it. When the confirmation email came through, I whispered the words I'd been carrying since the envelope appeared. Not every goodbye needs words. The lights of Chicago glimmered below as I stood behind the podium, hands steady for the first time in years. The banner read National Women's Financial Empowerment Conference, and seeing it still didn't feel real. A year ago, I was terrified to check my own bank account. Now, I was about to tell hundreds of women how I rebuilt everything from the ashes. When I spoke, my voice carried farther than I expected. Control wrapped in love, I said slowly, is still control. The room went silent. I saw faces change, women realizing that maybe what they called help had really been a leash. After the applause faded, a young woman approached me near the edge of the stage. "Are you Lena Marlowe?" she asked, her voice trembling. I thought I was the only one. We sat down together. Her name was Maya. Her brother had been managing her paychecks for years, saying she wasn't good with money. As she talked, I heard echoes of my own past, every excuse, every manipulation. I guided her through setting up her own account, locking it, securing it step by step. When we finished, she exhaled like someone surfacing from deep water. I can finally breathe, she whispered. Later that night, I sat by my hotel window, the skyline glowing like quiet fire. I thought about all the times I begged for approval, for kindness, for something resembling love. I thought I'd lost my family when I walked away. But looking out at the city, at the countless women who now stood beside me in strength and truth, I finally understood. I hadn't lost a family. I'd found one. A year later, I walked through the new Clearline Foundation headquarters, sunlight pouring through the glass walls. The place hummed with quiet energy, phones ringing, soft laughter, the kind of noise that came from rebuilding lives. Every wall was lined with framed letters from women who'd written to thank us. Words of strength, hope, and relief filled the space more powerfully than any decoration ever could. Maya passed by my office door, carrying a stack of files. Seattle and Dallas contracts are ready, she said, smiling. Seeing her there, confident, alive, made my chest tighten with pride. She'd gone from a frightened voice asking for help to a woman who now guided others to freedom. As the day ended, I stayed behind, the office quiet except for the soft hum of computers. My screen lit up with a new alert, another donation. $15,000, directed to the scholarship fund we'd created for women starting over. I didn't know who sent it, but somehow, that made it more meaningful. Maybe kindness didn't need a name to matter. I stepped out onto the balcony. The Denver night was cool, the city lights blinking like small promises. For a moment, I just breathed, letting the wind brush against my face. Then I noticed someone walking along the sidewalk below. Carol, my mother. She looked older, slower, but when our eyes met, something unexpected passed between us. Not anger, not blame, just a small, tired smile that carried a strange kind of truth. She didn't wave, and neither did I. There was nothing left to fix, nothing left to fight for. Just quiet understanding that we'd both moved beyond the war we started. I turned back toward the office. The sign on the wall glowed softly in the dim light. Clearline Foundation, protect. Rebuild. Begin again. I stood there for a while, letting those words sink in. I used to think family was something you were born into, something unbreakable, no matter how deep the hurt went. But I learned that love without respect is just control dressed in care. I smiled to myself, a quiet, steady kind of peace finally settling in. Family isn't who raised you. It's who lets you rise. So, what do you think? Was I right to cut them off for good? Or should I have given them one last chance? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm dying to know. And hey, if you love stories like mine, hit subscribe and turn on the bell. You won't want to miss what's next.